All right. Welcome everyone to WVU New Faculty Senate Orientation. We really appreciate you taking the time today to be here. Congratulations on your election and your representation of your colleges. We know this is an unusual day, a busy day, so but we really appreciate it. My name is Frankie Tack. I am the now chair of Faculty Senate, and I'm serving my second year of service. Just for those of you who don't know, our leadership for chair begins with a chair-elect year, then a service year as chair, and then an ex officio year. So we also have with us Diana Davis today, who's chair-elect, and I believe Scott is here as our now most recent past chair ex officio. Three main things we're going to do today, in addition to giving you a chance to ask questions. We're going to talk about the structure and of the Faculty Senate and the roles of faculty senators. We're going to talk about our collaboration with the Provost's Office and upper administration, and Melissa Latimer is going to chime in at that point and talk a little bit about how we work together. And then Corey Hunt, our administrator for Faculty Senate, is going to come on and talk to you about parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order, things like that. And we'll finish up with a Q&A. And hopefully get all your questions answered. All right. So we have two sort of groups of faculty, if you will. The broadest group is what's called the University Faculty Assembly. You might be familiar with this if you have been around the university for a little while, particularly in the fall when we call a University Assembly meeting and have all faculty come together. So members of the University Assembly include full-time faculty who report to a dean and who are not in positions considered temporary in nature. So for instance, a one-year appointment as a visiting faculty would not be considered a member of the University Assembly. We have approximately 2,600 members of University Assembly faculty who fit that description. We say approximately because that number is constantly moving up and down as people join and leave the institution and take on roles and leave roles. We also have two retired members who fulfill the or who represented on University Assembly who are members of the Committee of Retired Faculty. They sort of operate on their own doing service projects and but do participate a little bit in University Assembly. So all members of University Assembly have voting rights and can participate in making the overall faculty voice heard. And let's take a look at how that can happen. So the University Assembly are those who elect senators to represent them. And so you were elected in your college by members of the University Assembly who are assigned in your college. Our constituent groups for Faculty Senate are colleges. So we do not have elections and senators representing any other level of unit, such as a school or a department or a program. So you have been elected to represent your entire college. Another function of the Assembly is to express by formal resolution any opinions related to policy or administration of the university. So when the University Assembly meets, it can make resolutions and formally state opinions that can be presented to administration. The overall Faculty Assembly can challenge actions of the Senate. We have a mechanism for that via petition of at least 5% of the University Assembly. So the faculty are not simply subject to the whims of the Senate and shouldn't be, because we're a representative body. But if we take actions as a body that the overall Assembly would like to have us reconsider, the University Assembly can do that function. We hold one regular meeting of the University Assembly per year at a minimum per our Constitution. At that meeting, it is per our Constitution that the president shall come and report on the state of the university. We typically do this in October, and President Gee comes and reports to it. We can also have special meetings that can be called either by the president, by the faculty senate chair, or by a petition of university assembly members. So if you were here in the last year, which you would have to be a senator, now, there was a special meeting of the University Assembly called to take up the matter of the draft revised P&T document. The Senate itself then is a subgroup of the University Assembly, as a representative body. It is established through our faculty constitution, which has had several revisions over the decades, but most recently was revised in October of 2018. We currently have 131 elected senators, and that number fluctuates every year, potentially depending on the number of members in each constituency, that is in each college. So I skipped a bullet there, but we have one senator elected for each 20 or fraction of 20 of the University Assembly. And Corey has the wonderful honor of trying to figure out at the time of election every spring how many faculty are actually in the University Assembly in each college. The Senate is selected by vote to represent the academic units, both on the Morgantown campus and at Beckley and Kaiser. So we do have representatives. Those bodies have their own faculty assemblies, but they participate in our faculty senate and on our committees. Senators serve 3-year terms and may serve 2 consecutive terms if reelected. And we have a total of 144 voting senators. So you might ask, why is bullet 2 different than the last bullet? Why aren't there 131 elected senators? And the reason for that is that we have some members, by virtue of their position, who have a deemed status, if you will, as a senator, and those include non-senator committee chairs, and our positions such as our representative to state government and our elected representative to the Board of Governors. So that's what that 13 voting senator difference is. Okay, here's our leadership for this year. As I said, I'm now chair. I'm also, because I'm in this particular year, every other year, the chair also is a representative to the Board of Governors and serves a 2-year term, and that's why it's every other year. So I'll serve a term for this coming year and the following year. Diana Davis is chair-elect. She's out of Health Sciences. Scott Wayne, as I said, is our most recent past chair, our chair ex officio out of Statler. Dave Hauser is in year 2 of his current 3-year term, elected term as faculty secretary. He's from Eberly. Stan Heilman is our elected BOG representative. So you see we have 2 representatives to the BOG, one that is solely elected as the BOG representative, who is Stan, and then by virtue of that role, he is a senator, and one that is, in a sense, appointed via the chair role. We have Eloise Elliott, who is our elected representative to state government, and Eloise also serves on the Association of Consulting Faculty. Did I get that right? So there's a statewide organization that was founded via state law that has representatives from all the colleges and universities in West Virginia, all the public colleges and universities. They meet regularly to talk about issues, work collaboratively, and bring collective concerns back to their individual institutions. And then thank goodness for Corey Hunt. He is our full-time office administrator for Faculty Senate, and without whom none of this would be possible. Okay, so the role of the leadership team, which is this group, is to facilitate the operation business of the Senate. So we're conducting the regular Senate meetings and coordinating the committee business that you will see happening. To communicate with the university administration and board of governors concerning Senate activities. So bringing forward concerns and perspectives from the both the Senate activities, but from Senate activities as representing the entire faculty body and faculty voice. We participate on the President's Faculty Advisory Board, where we meet with President Gee once a month to share with him concerns that are arising and successes, and to hear from him about the issues of the day. We also have regular meetings with the provost and the provost team. We have bi-weekly meetings with Provost Reed, and we probably meet 2 or 3 times during the month otherwise with members of the provost team. So there's a lot of discussion and collaboration, and Melissa's going to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And as I already mentioned, we have 2 faculty senators on the board of governors. Those are full BOG members, voting members, which is different than some universities where it is an ex officio membership. Okay, so what are our functions? As I said previously, we are the recognized body recognizing faculty. So we're reviewing and recommending policies, concerns to the president, the provost, the board of governors. The scope of what we focus on in that sense are the objectives and academic standards, academic programs and curriculum, and the organizational structure of the university as it relates to academics, research, and service missions. We have quite a few functions, particularly in the area of the responsibilities, rights, and duties of faculty. And we have various committees who focus on the responsibilities, rights, and duties of faculty. I'll be showing you those in a minute. We also have some functions around student life as it relates to the interface with faculty. We participate in the development of the academic calendar and issues surrounding course scheduling. We have participation relative to the operation and administration of the libraries, which is something many people don't know, that the libraries are considered academic units, and the librarians, so to speak, are considered faculty at WVU. We also participate in academic recognitions and awards, and in ultimately voting for and selecting honorary degree recipients every spring. One important part of our function is participating in shared governance. And the activity of shared governance means faculty is working collaboratively with the administration of the university to reach our commonly desired outcomes of student success, fabulous research, and the pursuit of knowledge through the academic endeavor. And at WVU, we also have, I think, a shared vision around both our R1 mission as well as our land grant mission. So we have this shared role, and it's important to understand what that is and what that isn't. So you see the very first bullet there, that shared governance does not equal shared decision making. And I think through some processes, this gets a little confusing, that somehow because the Senate operates as a democracy, that means whatever we decide must be followed by the provost's office and other administrative units at the university, and that's not accurate. What we do is work to collaborate in that process, help to bring your input, your concerns, your perspectives, and to help shape that process in a collaborative manner that, it creates the best possible outcomes for the institution. But ultimately, WVU itself is not a democracy, even though the Senate acts in a democratic fashion. So we provide that input to administration. They weigh it carefully, and then they let us know ultimately what their decisions are. That process is I've been amazingly surprised how open that process is, and what commitment there is to that collaboration. And again, we're going to get Melissa in here in just a second. So strong Senate equals a seat at many tables equals opportunity for faculty input. So you being here is very powerful. And I encourage you to encourage your colleagues to participate in Senate, whether that's just, chiming in and watching the Senate meetings, or volunteering for committees or work groups and things where their voice can be directly heard, because we do have a seat at many tables, and we do have the opportunity, we collectively, to help influence what's happening at the institution. Okay, so you're in this brand new role, and here's what I guess you'd say your to-do list is. So again, as I said earlier, you are representing your entire college, and you're doing so with other senators of your college. And we call these the college caucuses. So I think there are 5 in my college, and from time to time we caucus. We have a meeting, we talk about what's going on. We tend to do it more when things are hot, and we need to make sure we understand what our internal college concerns might be, what we're hearing, how we're going to work together. I encourage you to do that. So important. And particularly in some of the larger colleges, of course, Everly, where there's so many senators, health science, 25 plus senators. So it's very important that you're collaborating and working together with the other senators in your college. As we know, when you organize, you can have a greater voice. Please attend faculty Senate meetings. I know this seems silly to say, but you'd be amazed at the number of people that do not come to the meetings. We need your voice. We need your input. We need your votes when the time comes, so that we can make sure that we are indeed representing faculty in the decisions and actions we take. We do ask that if you can't attend, you let Corey know, just so this gives us a heads up if we're not going to be able to meet quorum. Stay connected with your constituents. So again, this means everyone in your college. Those are your constituents. And it's very easy to just be focused on your own unit. So thinking broadly. So reporting back to your constituents about your Senate activities. I encourage you to do that within your unit. Asking your chair if you can report out at faculty meetings is a great thing you can do. To be in touch with the other senators in your caucus on how you all want to communicate broadly across the college. And then how are you going to seek feedback from your college? And again, on issues where there may be bigger things happening. I know in our college, our senator caucus, we've sent out surveys from our caucus as a whole, asking people to tell us their thoughts on a particular issue. This can inform you as to how you're going to vote, and things you might want to, comments you might want to make on the floor to help shape what's happening. I already talked about senator caucuses there. You have probably already gotten invitations to participate on Senate committees. We ask that you be on one committee, at least 2 is better. We are doing a lot of work in those committees. And some of them in particular really are having routine issues of the day brought to them, coming up with solutions and bringing those back to the Senate. So again, a real chance to have your voice, your college constituents be heard. We need your engagement. This is a real thing. And I know that I don't mean that to sound like you didn't think it was when you agreed to run for Senate. But this isn't performative in any way. We work, and I think I'm pretty safe to say we get things done. Some things we don't get everything we want, but as Melissa has said, neither does the administration. So it's a process. Now, in addition to the Senate, so we had our University Assembly, which is basically all faculty who meet those criteria. Then we have our Faculty Senate. We also have then an Executive Committee, which meets in order to review what is going to occur relative to the Senate, looking at policies, looking at actions that may be brought before the Senate, reviewing particular new matters that might need to come up before the Senate, assisting carrying out the rules, regulations, and actions of the Senate, also acting as the emergency body to act on behalf of the Senate in between meetings. So I'll give you an example of this. Last year, when the campus carry was happening, and we were in between faculty Senate meetings, and just the timing with how the whole thing erupted or moved, I probably should say, at the legislature, we didn't have time for that to go before the full Senate. So we crafted a resolution, a statement that then the Executive Committee met in an emergency meeting and voted on behalf of the Senate. We prepare and submit reports for administration in the Assembly and helping to interpret the faculty constitution. Do I have a list of who's on that? So the Executive Committee includes the President, the Provost, members of the Provost's office, the chairs of every Faculty Senate committee, and then we have some members who are directly elected senators to the Executive Committee, elected by the full Senate body, who participate, as well as the chair, the chair-elect, and the chair ex officio. It's a big group. I think this year it has around 45, 46 people on it. That group meets prior to Faculty Senate meeting. We also have a nice stable of working committees, and you can see the list here. I can tell you that most of them have things coming out of them on a regular basis. And just to point out a couple of things to you here, the research committee, you can see, has been reconfigured for the fall of 23. If you've followed Senate or participated in any way, you would know in the past we've had 2 research-related committees. So in the spring, there was a resolution to merge those committees into one and reinvigorate that as a working committee, because it had been just for the purposes, the 2 committees of hearing research, integrity appeals, and processing some research grants. But there's so much more we can and need to do relative to our research agenda now more than ever. So that committee has been reconfigured and reinvigorated. The service committee also has been very focused in the past on spring service grants, but also that committee is being reinvigorated for the coming year, and it's going to be taking a fresh look at our service mission at the university and seeing how we might utilize that committee more robustly. And then down at the bottom, you see we have a brand new recruitment and retention committee. And I bet you can guess why, since recruitment and retention are more critical than ever. And we've had questions come up relative to recruitment. What is the role of faculty in recruitment? To what extent should we be involved in recruitment? And then specifically, what types of things can faculty do to help improve efforts on retention? And we know we already do a lot of things. So we wanted to put together a group to look at those 2 sides and see how we can participate in that growing critical need. Always been a critical need, I guess, but it's bigger than ever. The General Education Foundations Committee looks at all things GEF and will likely be active this year as more work is going to happen relative to academic transformation. And let's see, what am I missing? Teaching and Assessment Committee is actively working. That's the committee actively working on a new instrument for student opinions on courses. And there have been some pilots underway. Our chair-elect is deeply involved in that, having been the chair of TACO. Inclusion and Diversity Committee is working on a DEI toolkit for faculty, which we hope will be coming out this year. So these are just a little sampling. They're all doing great things, and there will be plenty of options, activities available to you to participate and have your voice be heard. So if you haven't already gotten connected to a committee, please look right now at one you think might be a fit for you. And Corey, remind me who the chair is of Committee on Committees.
For now, it's actually going to continue to be Leslie Cottrell, just because of some scheduling changes. So Leslie Cottrell will be the chair of the Committee on Committees, Membership and Constituencies for at least the first part of the fall semester.
Okay.
We'll probably announce if there's a change to that mid-fall.
Okay, so you can email Leslie Cottrell and let her know. You could email Corey and let Corey know, and he can get you connected. You can also look on the Faculty Senate website, which I'm going to show you in a second, and email the new chair of the committee directly and say you'd like to join the committee.
Maggie, there is one question in the chat asking whether the recruitment and retention committee has been filled, or if we're still looking for members there.
So that committee has been filled. I believe that Leslie Cottrell intended to, she was currently slated to be the chair of that committee for its first year. I would recommend, if you're interested in that committee, go ahead and send her an email, just expressing your interest, since she is both the chair of that committee and currently chairing the Committee on Committees. She's definitely your person to try and get on that roster. And, yes. And I'll also just mention, if there's a committee you're interested in and you don't want to commit to it, or you're not sure what to expect, you're absolutely welcome to attend committee meetings without joining as a member. That's perfectly fine. If you just want to go in and feel it out to see what the business is like, what the conduct, what the current goals of the meeting are, that's all fine. Or if you want to contact me to get an idea of what the time commitment would be, or of what the goals for that committee are for the current academic year, I can provide all those to you.
Great. Thank you, Corey. Okay. So our committees, as I said, are working groups of the Senate. You can find their charges on the Faculty Senate website. There's a tab at the top that says committees. Scroll down, take a look. The current committee members are listed there with their emails. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, the charge of the committee is listed there, so you can see what it is they're all about. They work on issues that come into the committee from a variety of sources. So issues can be referred to the committee by the Senate. So let's say something was brought up on the floor of the Senate as a concern, and then we could take that issue and ask one of the committees to work on it. Sometimes things come into the leadership team that are concerns that would be best addressed with solutions crafted by a committee. And then sometimes the administration will raise issues on things that maybe they would like us to take a look at. You'll also see on many of the committees relative to administration that quite a few of the committees have ex officio members who are members of administration, because again, we want to work collaboratively. We don't want to be working at cross purposes. And where we have administrators who have those areas of our committees that are part of their areas of responsibility, having that work done together is very helpful. I'm sorry, was there? Oh, okay. University initiatives may call for us to craft some type of input, which might be best worked on by a committee. And then, as I mentioned previously, the executive committee includes members who are chairs of the various committees. And so those committee chairs then report out on what their committees are doing, both at the executive committee and then at Senate. You've listened to Senate, you've heard our committee reports. And committee chairs report every faculty Senate meeting, unless there has been nothing that's changed since the previous and they have no report. They also create an annual report on their committee activities, actions, and what is planned or hoped for the following year. And that helps with continuity from chair to chair of the committees. And they post their agendas and minutes for each meeting. And we, one of the things that Scott and Corey worked on, and Corey has just done amazing with this past year, is really working closely with the committee chairs to provide a lot of support for all of the activities that the committee chairs are responsible for. So we're very appreciative of that. All right, this is our Senate website. If you haven't seen it, there's a ton of stuff up here. And so click over, look around, you see there's that tab I mentioned about the committees, information here on how curriculum are developed and moved through the Senate. All of our past minutes and agenda are on there, information of how you can find any of us, and a brand new area that I would really like to ask you to make sure that your constituents are aware of in this transformation / budget area that Corey has set up for us. And this area includes curated information on questions and information that the Senate has sought from administration and that we've received back. So we're putting it there because it doesn't do any good if we only know. So you can find a lot of information there, a lot of very detailed information. Also, there is information there on the summer work group, key talking points from each meeting. They aren't minutes, but Scott and I are both on the summer work group. So he and I are working together to sort of summarize each of those meetings to give everyone an idea of what's happening. And then so that you will have somewhere for the moment to refer any of your colleagues who are experiencing job loss, contracts non-renewed, or future reductions in force. There is a link inside with a list of resources, and now the Provost's office has provided another much more detailed list, and so there's lots of resources right there at the fingertips. All right, at this point, I want to turn it over, please, to Melissa Latimer. And Melissa, if you would share some things with our new senators about working together.
Well, I'll just, one of the things I'm going to notice that the photos from 2019, you can see before I started this job, no gray hair. Anyway, hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. I don't know everyone, so I thought it might be useful for you to know that I initially came to WVU as an assistant professor of sociology. So my training and my academic career has been in sociology. Since that time, I came to the university. I've also served as chair of my department for 5 years. I was a faculty senator for 2 terms. And I was director of the WVU Advanced Center for 9 years before I moved into this role. And this was a new position that Mary Ann created in 2019. So I'm starting my 5th year in this role. Ways that you might see me, you'll see me at the Faculty Senate meetings. I always go in person unless I'm sick, right? Faculty Senate exec. I oversee that summer work group. I think we're going to start calling it summer/fall working group. That's a whole nother conversation. I also have worked extensively with Diana and the prior chair, Alan Taco, in terms of trying to find better ways of getting student feedback on their experiences in the classrooms here at WVU, and also on faculty welfare. So these are the major committees or places that you might run into me. I also offer a series of like faculty development workshops and new faculty orientation. So you might run into me. I do awards. Anyway, so I really appreciate your willingness to participate in university governance. This is a really essential piece for our organization. I'm really looking forward to getting to know each of you. And that's what, I mean, the turnover allows us to meet more people, but it also means we start the relationship over anew, right? So we sustain the relationships we've had with past presidents and people we've worked with, and then we start new relationships. And so it's not just something that we say. We spend a lot of time, energy, phone calls, meetings, engaging with all aspects of faculty senate, right? As well as with our deans and with academic chairs. But for now, it's really about faculty senate. This new role as a faculty senator is different. I mean, it asks you to sort of redirect from what's happening in your unit or what might be specifically happening in your career, in your classrooms, or in your research or service, right? And we're asking you to look more toward of a collective vision, what's happening on campus. So it's a matter of sort of looking up and looking broader. This part is just really essential for the institution to function. And so, as I said, we've worked really hard to create these partnerships with Faculty Senate. We want to sustain those and create additional ones as new people come in. And the reason we do that is because it's the way we think about faculty governance. We're sort of beyond the boundaries in terms of what the Constitution actually states, right? And so we engage with faculty as many ways as possible to get their feedback on things that we're doing, are working on. And we want to hear their concerns. We want to be as transparent and clear as possible, even with the things that are painful and are stressful. And you can see that with the website that was launched today, the faculty campus conversation that was, I think was full, about 1,000 people this morning, full access to all the data in terms of what's being used to sort of look more closely at programs. And so what I would say to you is that this is one of the major ways that we engage in faculty governance is with the senators. The other, of course, is all the other committees that are essential in terms of the university functioning. What I'd like to do is encourage you today to take advantage of every opportunity that you might have to get to know the president, the provost, and the members of their teams. So sometimes when we are inviting you as maybe a chair of a committee, or maybe just as a new senator to come to a lunch or a coffee or whatever, you might think to yourself, I don't have time to do that. We're not really doing anything important. That's just sort of social. Actually, that's where we are trying to get to know you and giving you a chance to get to know us as people and to ask questions. So take advantage of those opportunities. And I think the most important thing is trust is like essential for both sets, right? For faculty senators as well as for the provost office. And if you, the other thing I would ask of you is if you are unsure of something or you hear a rumor, one of the things you can do is just reach out to one of us. And if you want to just start with me, it's fine. I'll get you to the right person and we'll get you an answer as soon as possible, unless it's something that's confidential that we're not allowed to talk about, like personnel decisions or things like that. But we'll clarify that that's the reason that we can't talk to you about it. You'll also find that when we have a question, I will not hesitate a second to call you on Teams, regardless of where you are, and talk to you. So you can ask Frankie. She's finally figured out how to answer it. I call her so many times. But anyway, it's really important that both of us do this and engage in this in good faith, because it's our responsibility as leaders on this campus not to pass on misinformation or fear to our colleagues, right? We are dealing with enough now in the state at this moment with this budget crisis. And so it's always true, but it's more true than ever before. So reach out to us, ask, give us a chance to answer. And we will do the same with you. Any questions? Or do you want to just like move on to your next?
No, questions are fine, yeah.
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. I really appreciate it. Yes, she freaked me out more than once. Especially the first time, like, oh my God, how do I even answer this thing? Oh no, it's Melissa. Okay.
Scott has had his number of calls as well.
Yes.
Toss it over to Corey here. I just want to make one more quick comment about what Melissa said. We have really amazing access and collaboration with upper administration at WVU, and Scott and I and Diana learned this. We ended up in this meeting with these higher ed researchers. They just reached out, wanted to ask us some questions. They're doing a formal research project about senates, and they thought they might want to do a formal interview with us, but before they did that, they just wanted to chat, and we just started telling them some of our things and what we do and how we interact with the provost's office and the president, and they couldn't believe it. And gave us the feedback of how fortunate we were, that's really very different than most institutions. So while I know we all struggle sometimes with feeling, like we can get our voice heard, I think we have a really excellent system here, and we've got an office of people who have made a real commitment to do that. So thank you for that, Melissa. Okay, Corey, toss it over to you to tell us all about the rules.
Thanks for that, warm introduction there.
Yeah.
I don't have a fluffy introduction page to be like, hey, everyone, I like biking and walks on the beach. But I mean, just to introduce myself, I'm Corey Hunt. I'm the Office Administrator for Faculty Senate. I came here from about a decade of working in leadership for enrollment management, and I think I got out at a wonderful time, given the current state of affairs. But really, I see my role as helping facilitate faculty senate business in general. So I see myself serving faculty senate first, faculty second. So really faculty senate and beyond. If there's something I can assist with or help connect you to a resource, please let me know. I attend all meetings of faculty senates, committees, and otherwise, if it's possible. So, if you have questions about what's going on in faculty senate, generally speaking, I am typically aware. So that being said, the rules, as Frankie mentioned. So our Senate meetings are governed by parliamentary procedure, specifically Robert's rules. Robert's rules is an interpretation or a set of rules for parliamentary procedure. There are several very long, very dry books about it. I've been studying it for about a year now. I joined the institution last April 2022, and I'm realizing that I'm probably going to be learning about parliamentary procedure the entire time I'm in this role. So first thing to note is, in terms of how you can play a role in faculty senate agendas. So our executive committee typically approves and sets the agenda for our faculty senate meetings. If there's something that you believe is important or that needs presented, contact us. Don't assume that we're going to try and bring it up. We want to hear about it. Contact myself, contact Frankie. Let us know what you want to hear, or if you have something that you'd like to present yourself, let us know. We can talk about, how it might be presented, or we might just guide you to say, hey, that's something that you can bring up in new business and seek input from the other faculty senators on. I do want to note that we do not allow non-senators to speak in debate during our meetings. So after every motion item, there'll be an opportunity for debate from faculty senates. If you are not a member of Senate, you may not participate, with the exception that a senator may recognize a guest to speak. So if a senator believes that someone has relevant input for the situation at hand. You may recognize them and essentially yield the floor to them for them to speak and provide comments. We just ask that you make intelligent use of that privilege. But really, we want to make sure that we're not taking lower level issues to faculty senate. So if you have a question, really typically the place I recommend starting is talk to me, or if you have a better idea, contact the committee chair for a relevant committee, speak to them about what your concern is. They may have already addressed that with part of the institution, and then we can carry the business forward from there. Frankie, next slide, please. So in terms of general process of our meetings and our meeting flow, we start off every meeting with approving the minutes of the prior meeting. So I take notes at every single meeting. I try and capture as much detail as I can. I try and capture a lot of the conversation to provide context. I typically try to get those out within about a week of the meeting ending. Please be gentle with me if I don't get them out in 7 days. Sometimes they get pretty long. I think the minutes from the July meeting are 23 pages or something. So, sometimes there's a lot of conversation, but we approve those before every meeting. So if you look at the minutes and there's an error, something's misrepresented, if you are marked absent, you should be present. If you haven't emailed me ahead of time to make that correction, Frankie will present those minutes for approval. And you can just simply, be recognized and say, hey, could you please mark me as present? I was there and I was marked as absent. Easy as that. From there, we typically have guest speakers. President Gee and Provost Reed are really standard on our agenda. So they will speak at generally every meeting that they're able to, but we'll also bring people in, such as today at our meeting at Faculty Senate, we're going to be having recruitment and retention presented. So we will try and introduce relevant speakers to come in and speak on topics of concern for faculty and faculty senates. Frankie will control the conversation. She will call any votes. So if there's a vote on a motion or a resolution or anything in Senate, she will call a vote. When it's in person or hybrid, typically that'll be a show of hands or a voice vote. And individuals online will raise their hand to vote. If you haven't already learned how to do so, there should be a raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you're on PC, all you have to do is click that button to raise your hand, and then click it again to lower your hand. If you're on mobile, I believe there's a more button that you can hit, and then there's a raise hand option there. But we'll call a vote. Almost always, it's just going to be a majority rules. So majority will win. Frankie will call for all those in favor. And then there'll be a vote, and we'll count. And then there'll be all those opposed. And then we'll take a vote there as well. On occasion, we will do a secret ballot or, typically a more anonymous type vote where we will host it via Qualtrics so that we can provide more detail on the form, provide access to documents, and then you can provide your vote depending on the circumstance. For debates, we highly encourage debate. Really, this is we bring speakers in, we present information because it's of importance. And if you have questions, if there's information constituents need, we want you to ask the questions that you need to. Keep in mind that on any issue, so any main motion, you may only speak twice. So you can speak the first time. If you wish to speak again, you have to wait until everyone else has had a first opportunity to speak before you can speak again. To speak, generally, you just seek recognition by the chair. So if it's a virtual meeting, that'll be raising your hand. Or if you're attending remotely to a main meeting, just raise your hand during a debate session. If you are in person at our meetings at the College of Law, there are 2 microphones on either side of the room. Typically, to be recognized, we just ask you to queue up behind that microphone until Frankie recognizes you to speak. Regarding comments and debates, the important things to remember are civility, right? That is typically, it's like no kidding, right? We're all professionals here, but in particular lately, right, there's a lot of issues of high concern that impact a lot of people. And it's extremely important to remember that, we are here to get information and to seek the information, seek the input we need in order to provide the appropriate guidance as an advisory body. One of my biggest advice there would be to direct your comments to the chair, not to an individual associated with a discussion item. So if President Key, brought up something and there's debate on it, or debate related to a motion impacting President Key, you address the matter at hand with the chair. So, Chair Tack, my concern with this motion is blah, blah, blah. You're not providing personal attacks to the person who's there or saying a matter of opinion directly at the person who's impacted. That helps kind of remove some of that detail that could be associated, interpreted as an attack. Additionally, I ask to keep in mind that your questions should be from an angle of, if there's a vote, what information do the voters need to make an informed decision? Or if you are representing your constituents, what information do you need to appropriately inform your constituents? Those should be the most priority issues in terms of asking a speaker or discussing a main motion in terms of what information you need to gather. Next slide, please, Frankie. The basics of conducting business with Robert's Rules of Order. So when I speak of motions, that's basically just creating an action. So, you can say, I move that we pass a resolution that parking should be free on campus, right? You're creating an action for Senate to vote on. Also, good luck. If there's a matter that you feel we're not prepared to deal with, you could do something like, I move to table this matter, which would table it indefinitely. Or you could say, I move that we postpone this item until the next month's meeting. If you are in a debate and it goes on and on and on, and you're sitting in the audience and you're like, man, I really need to go pick up my kids, this is really dragging on, you could say, I call the question, or I move to limit debate. So if you call the question, that would end debate. If you move to limit debate, that would put parameters on it, where maybe you could say each speaker is limited to 60 seconds, or you could say we will only debate this topic for 10 minutes. And then those would need to be voted on with a 2/3 majority vote. Any vote that limits the ability for members to speak will always require a 2/3 majority vote. Trisha, I think it's always looking to get promoted, I believe. You can amend any main motion. So if there's a resolution up, like we'll be presenting a resolution at the main meeting, those can be amended. So you would say something like, I move that we amend this motion by blank, and please be specific. In particular, when you're addressing wording, because we will be adding the wording that you use in your amendment is the wording that we will use when changing the document. Okay, so please be specific. In some ways, it's best we try and present documents before the meetings. If we are presenting them from a faculty senate leadership perspective, because we want to get input if there is any, or prior to the meeting, because it can be hard to amend things sometimes. But please be specific. If that were to happen, then we would then debate and vote on the amendment, and then refer back to the main motion if it failed or passed. So, for example, move to pass a resolution, move to amend that resolution, debate, and then vote on the amendment, and then return to debate and voting on the motion that was amended. If there's something happening that you feel needs, is affecting the meeting, if you feel things are out of order and you wish it to be addressed, you can call for a point of order. That's a request of the chair to address something. So if you're saying, I call a point of order, that could be someone maybe speaking out of turn that they weren't recognized, or some other, break in proceedings. If we're about to have a vote and you feel like there's information that is unclear, that's extremely relevant to the vote, you could call for a point of information and say, could you please clarify, which schools this is going to impact? Next slide, please, Frankie. And then finally, every motion has 6 steps. Someone makes the motion, I move that we eat ice cream today. There has to be a second. Second is basically showing that someone else in the audience thinks that it's an okay idea. So if no one gives it a second, that's not a good sign for you, right? So the chair will restate the motion. So I move that parking is free on campus. The chair will say, Scott Wayne has moved that we pass a resolution making parking on campus free. Is there a second? And anyone can call it a second at that point. You don't have to be recognized to call it a second. It'll then be introduced for discussion. And that is where senators can seek to be recognized to offer their opinions on the issue or on the matter. This is also where you can move to amend the main motion. And then it will go to a vote where Frankie or the chair will call for affirmative or negative votes. And then at the end, there's always an announcement of what the results are and whether the motion passes or fails. I think I just have one more, right? Absolutely. That's great.
Did you have something else on your mind you wanted to share?
I mean, not really. I mean, honestly, I'll just say I've been here for a little over a year, and the best part has been working with. The people have been wonderful to work with. I've got to be honest. It's a great organization. The leadership we interact with are typically, very open and very collaborative. I would say my recommendation to all of you, all senators, new and current, is just to remember that, our leadership is our faculty senate leadership. They're not omniscient. If really, it's a faculty-driven organization. If there is a matter that you feel the faculty senate needs to take up, bring that up in a meeting, please. That way we can discuss the merits and carry it forward from there. I think it's difficult and a little bit unfair to rely on the chair by themselves to press forward with all of the matters of Senate, especially right now with all the things happening. It's hard to keep a firm grasp on everything happening in the institution.
Great. Thank you, Corey. I believe Corey also sent you a cheat sheet. I think he sent you the Constitution, perhaps a link to our website and some other materials. So I really encourage you to take a look at those things, get familiar. And you are going to get to dive right into your first faculty senate meeting in 15 minutes, which is highly unusual. And again, usually we're doing this in September, and you would be fully settled into your classes and whatnot. So thank you for your extra time. Thank you for showing up in the summer. I know many of you are off contract. And thank you for engaging this process, this unusual process we're in so quickly. So I appreciate you. If there's anything we can do to support you, any additional questions you have, please feel free to reach out. And we're all a team. So let us know what you need and what you're hearing.
I'll also just add that we don't, as far as business proceedings, we're going to help you out. If you don't phrase something exactly right, Frankie's not going to be like, get out. We will help you talk through what you want to accomplish. We're not so strict as to expect everyone to master parliamentary procedure. So feel free to, just say what you are hoping to accomplish, and we'll help you out from there.